We got another battle between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, and this one certainly did not disappoint. Despite the fact that the game was not close at all, we knew that going in. We knew that these two teams are on completely different ends of the spectrum in terms of championship contention this season. The Thunder, one of the best teams in the West, and the Spurs, not so much. But more specifically, this matchup between these two guys is something that I'm going to watch every single time they match up against each other for a lot of different reasons. And my biggest takeaway here is that these are two players that, generally speaking, are not very confrontational. They're not super emotional players on the floor. Wemby a little bit more than Chet, but there's clearly something here between these two guys. I don't know if they feel like the other one is kind of on the other's corner a little bit, is this like unicorn kind of player. Obviously, these are the two front runners at the moment for the Rookie of the Year award, which we're going to talk about throughout the video. But when they play against each other, it's clear that there's a little bit extra there. There's a little bit extra physicality. They almost feel like they're in a one-on-one matchup within the whole scope of the game as well. And that's super, super fun because that's something, generally speaking, we don't really see a ton in the NBA anymore. And we certainly don't see it with younger players, guys that just got to the league. And there's really no reason for that to be the case between these two guys, apart from the similarities in their games. Now, they are much different, but aesthetically, at times, there's a lot of similarities. These are both guys that are extremely tall, that can shoot, that have perimeter skill, that are great rim protectors, that play the 5 for each of their teams now as Wemby has moved to the 5 spot. And they're going to be matched up against each other multiple times a year, every year, as long as each of them are healthy. And these kinds of matchups and these kinds of just battles are super, super fun within a regular season that we don't really get a ton of those. And again, it's interesting because their personalities typically don't really match that. And also, their games don't really match that. Both of them right now are a little bit more, complementary pieces. Certainly Chet with Oklahoma City. Wemby is being asked to do a lot, but just isn't capable of as much as you'd want him to be at the moment, just because the infrastructure around him isn't all that great. And these aren't like ISO heavy, let me drive by, let me work in the mid post. They're not those kinds of players right now for their teams. But in this game, it felt like they were going to that a little bit more, almost to kind of prove something to the other player. And of course, the Rookie of the Year race is at the center of all of this. And in kind of the theme of these two guys, they're very similar. Their cases for Rookie of the Year are, but also very different. Just like their games are very similar, yet also very different. Right now, it seems like there's momentum towards Victor Wembanyama winning the Rookie of the Year award because statistically he's been a little bit more impressive lately. Overall, I think the belief publicly is that Wemby is the better player, and that the difference between the two at the moment, of course, is the wins. Oklahoma City is one of the best teams in the league, and San Antonio is one of the worst. And it's really difficult to give an award that, yes, is about rookies, but to give an award to a guy in Wembanyama whose team might not even win 20 games this year and just got absolutely destroyed by the Thunder, going up against his main rival for the award in Chet. Now, this individual game shouldn't necessarily have a huge impact on the Rookie of the Year award itself, but it is interesting to think about how much these two players kind of encompass the difference in ideals and what people think a Rookie of the Year award should or shouldn't be about. Is it about the player that right now is probably better and more impactful in Wemby, or is it about a guy that is having a ton of success on a team and also having a lot to do with that in Chet? Oklahoma City was very good last year, but they were not nearly as good as they have been this year. And one of the main pieces that has been different has been Chet being healthy. And of course, Chet being a second-year player versus Wemby being an actual rookie. All of those things go into it. And I think all of that feeds into this kind of rivalry that is coming about for each of these guys. Now, for me, the Rookie of the Year award shouldn't be as focused on winning. Like, if you want to talk about the MVP or All NBA or all these different things, that's fine. But I don't really see a scenario in which Victor Wembanyama could have done more so far this season to help the Spurs win more games. And Chet has been awesome and a great complementary piece for the Thunder. But he is obviously so much better set up for success and for higher efficiency and for potentially better stats in Oklahoma City than Wembanyama is in San Antonio. You saw that in the game last night. The margin was not close. The talent disparity was incredible. And Wemby is being asked to be the best guy on the team whereas Chet's being asked to be like the third or the fourth best guy on the team. And it really comes down to, it's okay to appreciate both of these rookie seasons and still have an opinion on who you think should or shouldn't win the Rookie of the Year award. To me, I would probably lean towards Wemby because I think he's doing a little bit more in a worse environment. But if you want to say that Chet has been so impactful as a complementary and a connecting piece in Oklahoma City, I'm fine with that as well. But really the thing that I'm excited about is the continued growth of each of these players' games, because we've seen already a tremendous amount of growth, not only within this season, but when you're thinking about Chet, going back to his final season in college and now this season, he's a completely different player. He's a little bit stronger. His skill set has improved. His passing has improved. He's even better as a rim protector. And Wemby has come in and been a little bit up and down at times offensively. The shot has, efficiency has kind of fluctuated, but defensively has been absolutely everywhere. And since moving to the 5, as we've talked about in recent videos, he's been even more impactful defensively than he was when he was sharing the floor with another big. And that's the thing that matters to me, is I want this kind of rivalry and battle to be a thing, because as San Antonio uses their draft assets and continues to improve over the years, and as the Thunder continue to improve as such a young team, I think these are going to be two teams that we're going to see at the top of the league within the next couple of seasons. And I want that kind of rivalry. I want that kind of like, okay, this guy is kind of stealing my thing. I'm supposed to be the incredibly impactful defensively with guard skills, 7-foot+ guy. Like, that's supposed to be my thing. And I feel like each of them kind of look at each other as a bit of a rival. And that's really, really cool. And so I say all that to say a game like this is going to further increase that kind of like rivalry aspect between these two guys. But it's also important to understand that like we should appreciate how good each of these guys are, how good it is to have them both in the league, and also appreciate the things that make them different from one another, not make them the exact same player, and not necessarily say that one is better or worse than the other. In this exact moment right now, if you asked me who is the better player between Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, it's impossible to decide. The situations are so remarkably different. If you put Chet in San Antonio or Wemby in Oklahoma City, it's impossible to say who would or would be, better or worse, or who would look better or worse than they do right now. Obviously, the concept of Victor Wembanyama in Oklahoma City was something that was kind of on the radar there through parts of last season, and that kind of would have just been absolutely game-breaking. But there's also things that Chet does better as a connecting piece and as a complementary piece than Wemby. So it is just absolutely impossible to say, and I'm hoping that these kinds of rivalry games serve as a positive and they don't create this gap between like you have to be a Chet guy or you have to be a Wemby guy. We can appreciate them both. We can see how they're different. We can see how they are both benefiting and suffering potentially statistically or from a winning perspective in each of these respective situations that they've been in, without also having to say, oh, well, they would be doing this in this situation or that in that situation. It's impossible to say. But I will say, give me more of this. I want to see more Chet Wemby battles, and I want to see more of this, like this rivalry, this kind of a battle, this physicality between these two guys where clearly they knew that everybody was watching them. They knew that everybody was paying attention to them. They knew that they were at the front of the Rookie of the Year race. I want more of that, especially in the regular season in the NBA. That can only be seen as a positive in my eyes. Just an absolute battle between these two guys that are probably going to be at the top of the league within the next couple of seasons.